The wind screamed across the ice fields like a wounded animal. Daniel Reed pressed his gloved hand against the frozen window of his research station and watched the storm tear through the darkness outside. Snow moved in waves, thick and angry, covering everything in white chaos. He had been alone on Glacius 7 for 3 months now, studying how life could survive in places that seemed designed to kill it. His breath fogged the glass. The heater hummed behind him, working hard to keep the small metal building warm enough for human survival. Outside, the temperature had dropped to minus 140 degrees. Nothing should be alive out there. Nothing should be moving. But something was. Daniel squinted through the storm. Near the heat vent on the side of his station, he saw movement. Small shapes huddled together, barely visible through the swirling snow. His heart jumped. Living creatures, right outside his door, in weather that could freeze blood solid in minutes. He grabbed his thermal suit from the hook and pulled it on fast. The suit was bulky and made him move slowly, but it was the only thing that could keep him alive outside. He sealed the helmet and checked the oxygen levels. 20 minutes. That was all he had. The airlock hissed as it cycled through. Cold hit him like a physical wall when the outer door opened. Even through the suit, he could feel the temperature trying to drain every bit of warmth from his body. The storm pushed against him, making each step a battle. The shapes were still there, pressed against the heat vent. As Daniel got closer, his helmet light caught them clearly. His breath stopped. 3 baby dragons. They were tiny, each one small enough to fit in his hands. Their scales were dull gray, covered in frost. Ice had formed on their wings, weighing them down. Their eyes were closed, and they barely moved. One of them made a sound so weak and sad that Daniel felt in his chest. Frost drakes. He recognized them from the old research files. Everyone thought they were extinct. The adult dragons had left this planet 50 years ago when the temperatures started dropping. These babies should not exist. They should not be here, but they were dying right in front of him. Daniel did not think. He scooped all 3 of them into his arms, feeling how cold they were even through his gloves. They weighed almost nothing. He turned and fought his way back to the airlock, moving as fast as the storm would let him. Inside, he stripped off his suit with shaking hands. The hatchlings lay on his work table, perfectly still. Ice crystals covered their small bodies. Their breathing was so shallow, he could barely see their chests move, that he knew the rules. All alien life forms had to be reported immediately. The Galactic Federation had strict laws about this. Frost drakes especially. There were old stories about them, stories that made other species afraid. Stories about colonies attacked and ships destroyed. But Daniel looked at these 3 tiny creatures and saw only babies who would die if he did nothing. That he grabbed every warm blanket he owned and made a nest on the floor near the heater. Gently, so gently, he placed each hatchling in the warmth. He turned the temperature up as high as it would go. The station computer beeped a warning about energy usage. He ignored it. For an hour, he watched them. They did not move. The frost on their scales began to melt, making small puddles on the blankets. Their breathing stayed weak. Daniel tried everything. He adjusted the heat. He repositioned them closer to the vent. He even tried using his medical scanner to stimulate their body functions. Nothing worked. One of them, the smallest with copper-colored scales, made that sad sound again. It was barely a whisper, but it cut through Daniel like a knife. The little dragon was calling for something. For someone. For help that was not coming. Daniel sat down on the floor next to them. He was exhausted. The adrenaline from the rescue was wearing off, and his body reminded him that he had been awake for 20 hours straight. His eyes felt heavy. He lay down on his bunk across the room, just for a moment, just to rest his eyes. Sleep took him hard and fast. When he woke up, everything had changed. The weight on his chest made him blink in confusion. 3 small, warm bodies pressed against him. The hatchlings had left their blanket nest and crawled under his blanket. They were tucked against his body, their heads under his chin. Tiny claws gripped his shirt. He could feel their breathing, stronger now, rhythmic and peaceful. One of them, the blue-scaled one, opened its eyes and looked at him. The eyes were golden and clear. The hatchling made a soft purring sound that Daniel's throat went tight. Their scales were shimmering now, catching the light. They looked healthy. They looked alive. All three of them were purring, a sound that vibrated through his whole body. They had not wanted artificial heat. They had wanted him. Daniel lifted his hand slowly and touched the copper-colored hatchling on the head. Its scales were warm now, smooth under his fingers. The little dragon leaned into his touch and purred louder, that he smiled. Then carefully, gently, he pulled his blanket up and wrapped it around all three of them, tucking them close to his warmth. They snuggled deeper, small sounds of contentment coming from their throats. The station computer logged the event with a single note. Anomalous human behavior detected. Emotional attachment forming. Daniel did not care about the log. He did not care about the rules. These babies had chosen him, had trusted him with their lives. He would not let them down. 3 days had passed since the storm. Daniel sat at his desk with a tablet in his hands, scrolling through research files about frost drakes. Behind him, soft chirping sounds filled the room. The hatchlings were awake and exploring his quarters. The blue one was brave. It climbed onto the desk and tried to eat Daniel's stylus. He gently took it back, and the dragon chirped in protest, tilting its head to one side. Daniel laughed despite himself. The ash-gray one stayed close to the shadows, watching everything with careful eyes. It moved slowly, testing each surface before putting weight on it. Smart, cautious, the copper one followed Daniel everywhere. When he stood up to get water, it scurried after him on unsteady legs. When he sat down, it tried to climb up his pants. It was the smallest and the clingiest, always wanting to be touched. Daniel had set up a proper warming station in the corner. Heat lamps, soft bedding, temperature controls. Everything the research manual said a cold-blooded creature would need. The hatchlings completely ignored it. Instead, every few hours, they would climb on his lap or crawl up his shirt. They wanted his warmth, his touch, his presence. When he worked at his computer, all three would pile on his feet. When he ate, they sat on the table and watched every bite he took. At night, they burrowed into his blanket and would not sleep anywhere else. IT was exhausting. It was wonderful. It was completely against every protocol he had ever learned. The tablet beeped. New information loaded onto the screen. Daniel's eyes widened as he read. Frost drakes were not native to ice planets. They came from a world called Duros, a place with forests and rivers and warm rain. 50 years ago, a war had broken out in this sector. The drakes had been caught in the middle, their world destroyed by fighting between two massive fleets. The survivors fled to any planet they could reach. Some landed on Glacius 7, but they could not survive here. The cold was too much. Adult frost drakes died within months. The population collapsed. Everyone assumed the species had gone extinct, but these 3 babies proved otherwise. Somehow, somewhere, eggs had survived. Maybe frozen in stasis. Maybe protected in deep caves. And when the temperature shifted just enough, they hatched into a world that was killing them. Daniel felt sick. These hatchlings had been born into a nightmare. No parents. No pac. No one to teach them how to survive. They should have died in that storm. The blue hatchling knocked over his water cup. Water spilled across the desk. The dragon jumped back, startled, then looked at Daniel with wide eyes. Guilty that he could not help it. He laughed and cleaned up the mess. The hatchling chirped and licked his hand with a tiny forked tongue. The door chimed. Daniel's heart stopped. He scooped up all 3 hatchlings and shoved them into his blanket on the bunk. They squeaked in surprise, but stayed quiet. He pulled the blanket over them completely. Then he walked to the door and opened it just enough to see outside. Quillen stood there, all 6 legs shifting nervously. The insectoid's antennae twitched as it spoke in clicks and whistles that Daniel's translator converted to words. You have been avoiding me. For 3 days. This is not normal behavior. I am concerned. Daniel tried to smile. Just busy with research. You know how it is. Quillen's compound eyes focused on him. Your heart rate is elevated. Your thermal signature shows stress markers. You are lying to me. Damn insectoid senses. Before Daniel could respond, a soft chirping sound came from inside his quarters. Quillen's antennae shot straight up. What was that sound? Nothing. Just a recording. For my research. Quillen pushed past him into the room. Daniel's stomach dropped. The insectoid looked around, analyzing everything. Its antennae swept back and forth, picking up heat signatures. The blanket moved. A small copper head poked out, blinking sleepily. Quillen froze. Then all 6 legs skittered backward so fast that it crashed into the wall. Frost Drake. You have a Frost Drake. 3 of them. The translator could barely keep up with how fast Quillen was speaking. Are you insane? Do you know what those things become? Do you know what they have done? Daniel stepped between Quillen and the buck. The 3 hatchlings, sensing danger, crawled out of the blanket and huddled behind his legs. They made frightened sounds, pressing against him. They are babies, Daniel said quietly. Just babies. They were dying in the storm. They will grow into killers. The Federation has standing orders. All Frost Drakes must be reported and eliminated. This is law. They are 3 days old, and in 3 years, they will be large enough to tear apart a ship. Quillen's voice was high and panicked. I must report this. I have to. The law is clear. The copper hatchling whimpered. It grabbed Daniel's pant leg with tiny claws. The blue one spread its small wings, trying to look threatening, but only managing to look scared. The ash-gray one trembled. Daniel knelt down and gathered all 3 into his arms. They buried their faces against his chest. Look at them, he said to Quillen. Really look. Do they seem like monsters to you? Quillen's antennae lowered slightly. The insectoid took a careful step forward, studying the hatchlings. They peeked out from Daniel's arms, golden eyes wide. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, Quillen spoke. 3 days. I will give you 3 days to find solution. Then I must report this. The law does not bend, Daniel. Not even for you. Not even for babies. Daniel nodded. 3 days. He had 3 days to save their lives. When Quillen left, he sat on the floor and let the hatchlings crawl all over him. They chirped and purred, not understanding how much danger they were in. The copper one licked his face. The blue one fell asleep on his shoulder. The ash-gray one watched the door, still wary. 3 days to do the impossible. The hatchlings had names now. Daniel had not planned to name them. Naming them made everything harder. But the blue one was too curious and bold to just be the blue one. Blue fit. The cautious gray one moved like ash drifting on wind. Ash, the copper-colored smallest one who followed him everywhere. Copper. Names made them real. Made them his. Daniel worked through the night while the 3 dragons slept in a pile on his bunk. His fingers flew across the keyboard, searching through every database he could access. There had to be something. Some law, some loophole, some way to protect them. The more he read, the worse it got. 70 years ago, Frost Drakes had been peaceful traders. They traveled between worlds, carrying goods and messages. Then the sector war started. Their home world was destroyed. The survivors scattered, desperate and angry. Some of those survivors turned to raiding. They attacked supply ships, stole resources, destroyed stations. The Federation labeled the entire species as hostile. Every single Frost Drake was considered a threat. The bounty for reporting one was enough to buy a small ship. And no exceptions. No mercy. Not even for babies. Daniel slumped in his chair. His eyes burned from staring at the screen. There was no legal way to save them. None that a soft weight landed on his shoulder. Blue had climbed up the back of his chair and now perched there, tiny claws gripping his shirt. The hatchling made a questioning chirp, golden eyes staring at his face. I do not know what to do, Daniel whispered. Blue tilted its head, then gently pressed its snout against his cheek. Warm, trusting. Daniel made a decision that he opened a new search window and typed carefully. Underground networks, species relocation, illegal sanctuaries, all the things respectable researchers never looked for. The results loaded slowly. Most were scams. Some were traps set by Federation enforcement. But buried in the garbage, he found something real. A contact. A group that moved endangered species to hidden worlds where they could live in peace. The contact method was old-fashioned. A text-only message board. Daniel typed out his situation, keeping details vague. He sent the message and waited. Blue fell asleep on his shoulder. Ash and Copper woke up and started playing, chasing each other around the small room. They pounced and tumbled, making soft growling sounds. It was playing, just normal baby playing. The message board pinged. A response. We can help. Transport available in 4 days. Location coordinates to follow. Payment required. For days. Quillen had given him 3. Daniel typed back. Need transport in 2 days. Emergency situation. The wait was longer this time. Finally, another response. Impossible. Ships are scheduled. For days minimum. No exceptions. He wanted to scream, wanted to throw the tablet across the room. Instead, he took a deep breath and typed again. Hatchlings will die in 3 days if not moved. Please. No response. Copper climbed up his leg and into his lap. The little dragon yawned, showing tiny sharp teeth, then curled up and closed its eyes. Complete trust. Complete peace. Daniel stroked its head with one finger. The copper scales were smooth and warm. His tablet pinged hours later. He had dozed off in the chair with Copper still in his lap. The message made his heart jump. For days. That is the best we can do. Keep them hidden. Keep them safe. We will come. For days. He needed 3. The door chimed. Daniel's whole body tensed. It was barely dawn. No one should be visiting. He scooped up Copper and quickly moved all 3 hatchlings to their blanket. They squeaked in protest, but settled down. He covered them and went to the door. Quillen stood outside with another figure. A tall reptilian in Federation uniform. Daniel's blood went cold. Daniel Reed. The reptilian said in a voice like grinding stones. I'm Commander Ellis. I am here for a routine inspection of your research station. There was nothing routine about this. Daniel could see in Quillen's nervous antenna twitching. His friend had not reported them yet, but someone else had triggered an inspection. Of course, Daniel said, trying to keep his voice steady. Comaine. Relas entered and immediately pulled out a scanner. The device beeped and hummed as it swept the room. Daniel's heart hammered. The scanner would detect the hatchling's life signs. It would find them. You were studying cold adaptation and local fauna, Relas said. It was not a question. Yes, microorganisms mostly. Some insects. The scanner beeped louder near the bunk. What is under that blanket? Daniel's mind raced. Specimens. Preserved samples. Nothing living. Relas walked to the bunk. Reached for the blanket. Blue chirped. Soft but clear. The commander's hand stopped. Yellow eyes narrowed. That was not a preserved sample. It was a recording. From my field work. Do not lie to me, human. Relas yanked the blanket away. All 3 hatchlings blinked up at them. Ash pressed flat, trying to hide. Copper made a scared sound. Blue stood up on wobbly legs and tried to look brave. Relas pulled out a weapon. Frost drakes. 3 juveniles. By Federation law, they must be terminated immediately. Daniel moved without thinking. He stepped between the gun and the hatchlings, arms spread wide. No. Move aside, researcher. This is not negotiable. They are babies. They have done nothing wrong. They are frost drakes. Their existence is illegal. Move, or I will move you. Behind Daniel's legs, all 3 hatchlings huddled together. They made frightened sounds, clinging to each other. Blue spread its tiny wings over the other 2, trying to protect them. The weapon charged with a high-pitched whine. Daniel did not move. He looked Relas directly in the eyes and spoke clearly. You'll have to go through me first. The room fell silent except for the scared chirping of 3 baby dragons who did not understand why the world wanted them dead. Time stretched like frozen glass. Daniel stood between the weapon and the hatchlings, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Commander Relas held the gun steady, yellow eyes cold and unblinking. Behind Daniel, Copper whimpered. The sound cut through him like a blade. Last chance, human. Step aside. No. Quillen's antennae drooped in distress. Daniel, please. Do not do this. The law is absolute. Then the law is wrong. Relas took a step forward. You would die for creatures that will grow into killers? For beasts that have destroyed colonies and murdered innocents. Daniel's hands were shaking, but he kept his voice steady. They are 1 week old. They have hurt no one. They have done nothing except try to survive. Their species, they are not their species. Daniel's voice rose. They are 3 babies who were abandoned on a frozen planet. They were dying when I found them. They are not responsible for what other frost drakes did 70 years ago. Blue chirped and grabbed Daniel's leg with tiny claws. The hatchling looked up at Rella's and made a soft sound. Not aggressive, not threatening, just scared that Rella's weapon did not lower. Frost drakes are genetically programmed for violence. They grow large, strong, dangerous. So do humans, Daniel shot back. We have destroyed worlds too. We have waged wars. Should every human baby be killed because of what some humans have done? Something flickered in Rella's eyes. Doubt maybe, or just annoyance. Quillen moved closer, speaking quickly. Commander, if I may, I have been observing these hatchlings for the past hour. Their behavior is unusual. Unusual how? They show attachment behaviors, emotional bonding. They responded to the humans' distress before they responded to their own danger. Quillen's translator buzzed. This is not normal predator behavior. Predators prioritize self-preservation. They are young. Instincts have not developed yet. Perhaps. Or perhaps their instincts are developing differently because of how they are being raised. Rella's finally looked away from Daniel to study Quillen. What are you saying? I am saying that every report we have about violent frost drakes comes from adults who survive trauma. Starvation, genocide. These 3 have known only safety and care. Quillen gestured at the hatchlings with one leg. What if the violence was not genetic? What if it was learned? The weapon lowered slightly. Just slightly. Ash, the cautious one, peeked out from behind Blue. It looked at Rella's with wide golden eyes, then back at Daniel, making a choice. Slowly, carefully, it crept forward. Ash, no, Daniel whispered. But the gray hatchling kept moving. It walked past Daniel's feet, small body trembling, until it stood between him and the commander. Ash sat down and made a soft trilling sound. Then it pushed something forward with its nose. A small piece of shiny metal. A bolt from Daniel's equipment that the hatchling had been playing with earlier, an offering. A gift. Rella stared at the tiny dragon. The gun wavered. It is trying to communicate, Quillen said quietly. Offering trade. This is documented behavior from before the war. Frost drakes were merchants, diplomats. They believed in exchange, in mutual benefit. Copper, seeing what Ash had done, waddled forward too. It placed a smooth pebble next to the bolt. Blue followed, contributing a bent stylus point 3 babies, offering their treasures to someone who wanted them dead. Rella's weapon arm dropped completely. The commander stood frozen, staring at the small pile of objects. Minutes passed. No one spoke. Finally, Rella's holstered the weapon. This is against protocol, against every regulation I have sworn to uphold. Daniel held his breath. But I will not kill children who offer me gifts. Rella's looked at Daniel with an expression that might have been pain. You have 4 days. I will delay my report, claim equipment malfunctions, investigation complications. For days. After that, I cannot protect you or them. The relief hit Daniel so hard his knees almost gave out. Thank you. Thank you. Do not thank me. If they are found after my report is filed, nothing will save them. Get them off this planet. Get them somewhere safe. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that I am right about this. Rella's turned to leave, then stopped at the door. For what it is worth, human, you have more courage than sense. Perhaps that is a good thing. When the door closed, Daniel collapsed onto the floor. All 3 hatchlings immediately swarmed him, chirping and climbing over him, licking his face with tiny tongues. They did not understand what had just happened. They only knew that the danger had passed. Quillen approached slowly. You were willing to die for them. Yes. What? Daniel looked at the 3 dragons piled on his chest. Blue was chewing on his collar. Ash was curled against his neck. Copper had fallen asleep on his stomach. Because someone had to. Quillen's antennae quivered. I will help you. Whatever you need. I do not know if they will become the monsters everyone fears, but I know they deserve the chance to become something else. Daniel stroked Kappa's head. The little dragon purred in its sleep. We have 4 days to arrange transport. The sanctuary ships will not arrive for 4 days. Then we have no time to waste. Quillen moved to the computer. I will help you make preparations. We will need supplies, documents, a cover story for when they leave. Quillen, if anyone finds out you helped me, you will lose everything. The insectoid's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. Some things are worth losing everything for. You have taught me that today, human. Daniel looked at the 3 sleeping hatchlings. For more days. Then they would be gone. Safe, but gone. His chest ached at the thought. But keeping them alive was more important than keeping them close, that he would give them every moment of warmth and safety he could until then. For days felt like 4 hours. Daniel spent every moment with the hatchlings. He taught them to eat from his hand, watched them take their first clumsy flights across the room, listened to them chirp and purr and make sounds that almost seemed like words. They were learning so fast, growing so fast. Blue had figured out how to open cabinet doors. Ash had learned that hiding under the desk meant no one could find it during games. Copper refused to sleep anywhere except pressed against Daniel's side. On the second day, Daniel tried to prepare them. He set up a travel crate with soft bedding and treats inside. The hatchlings sniffed it, explored it, then completely ignored it. They wanted to be with him, not in a box. On the third day, he recorded everything. Videos of them playing, audio of their sounds. He wanted to remember every detail. Blue knocking over water cups. Ash carefully organizing Daniel's tools by size. Copper following him to the bathroom and scratching at the door until he came out. Quillen visited every day, bringing supplies and helping with preparations. The insectoid had grown fond of the hatchlings too. Ash would climb onto Quillen's back and ride around like a tiny rider on a 6-legged horse. It made them both happy. On the 4th day, Daniel woke before dawn. The hatchlings were piled on top of him, as always, warm and peaceful. He lay still, memorizing the weight of them, the sound of their breathing, the soft purr that Copper made in sleep that he did not want them to leave. Every cell in his body screamed against it. They were his. He had saved them. They trusted him. How could he send them away? But keeping them meant their death. The Federation would come. The law would not bend twice. His tablet pinged. A message from the sanctuary transport. Arriving at coordinates in 6 hours. Be ready. 6 hours. That was all he had left. Daniel carefully moved the sleeping hatchlings off his chest and got up. He packed their favorite blanket, a few toys they had claimed as their own, some of his shirts that still smelled like him. Maybe it would comfort them. The hatchlings woke up and sensed something was wrong. They gathered around his feet, making worried sounds. Blue pulled at his pants with tiny teeth. Ash pressed against his leg. Copper climbed up his body and wrapped around his neck like a scarf, refusing to let go. I know, Daniel whispered. His voice cracked. I know. I am sorry. He sat on the floor and let them crawl all over him. He petted each one, memorizing the feel of their scales. Blues were slightly ridged. Ash's were smooth as glass. Coppa's had a warm metallic sheen. They played like nothing was wrong, chasing each other, wrestling, bringing him things to examine. Normal baby behavior. They had no idea their world was about to shatter. Quillen arrived with a small transport case. Better than a crate. It had windows, climate control, cushion walls. The best they could get on short notice. The sanctuary ship will take good care of them, Quillen said gently. They rescue dozens of species every year. The hatchlings will have space to grow, others of their kind to learn from. Safety, I know, but you wish you could keep them. Yes. Quillen's antennae drooped in sympathy. Humans form attachments very quickly. It is both your strength and your weakness. Daniel picked up Copper, who immediately snuggled against his chest. Will they remember me? I do not know. Perhaps. Perhaps it is better if they do not. That hurt worse than anything else. The hours crawled by. Daniel fed the hatchlings their favorite foods. He played all their favorite games. He held each one and told them they were good. They were brave. They were going somewhere wonderful. They chirped happily, not understanding. When the time came, Daniel's hand shook as he picked up the transport case. The hatchlings saw it and backed away. Blue hissed. Ash hid under the desk. Copper clung to Daniel's leg and would not let go. They knew. Somehow they knew. I have to, Daniel said, tears burning his eyes. I have to keep you safe. Please understand. Please. Getting them into the case was the hardest thing he had ever done. Blue fought, tiny claws scratching. Ash went limp, making itself impossible to move. Copper cried, a sound so heartbroken that Daniel almost gave up entirely. But he did not. He could not. Their lives mattered more than his heart. When all three were finally inside, they pressed against the windows, golden eyes wide and confused. They made sounds that would haunt Daniel forever, calling for him, begging him that he sealed the case and could not look at them anymore. Quillen helped carry it to the transport coordinates. The sanctuary ship waited there, small and unmarked. A crew member, something that looked like a walking tree, took the case gently. "They will be safe with us," the being said in a creaking voice. "We will care for them as our own." Daniel nodded because he could not speak. Through the case windows, three small faces watched him. Copper was crying. Ash was motionless. Blue was still trying to break through the seal. The crew member carried them toward the ship. Daniel wanted to run after them, wanted to take them back, wanted to tell the sanctuary to leave without them. But he stood still and watched them go to the ship's ramp. Blue let out a sound, a single clear note that carried across the ice. It was not a chirp or a purr. It was something new, something that sounded like a word that T sounded like goodbye. The ship doors closed. The engines hummed to life. Within minutes, it was gone, taking three baby dragons to a new life far away. Daniel stood alone on the frozen planet, staring at empty sky. Quillen's leg touched his arm in comfort. "You did the right thing." "Then why does it feel so wrong?" No answer. There was no good answer. Daniel walked back to his station. It felt empty now, lifeless. All the toys were still scattered on the floor. The blanket still held their warmth. His shirt still had tiny claw marks. He sat on his bunk and let himself cry. For three babies he had known for only 1 week. For three lives he had saved and then had to give away. For the family he had found and lost in the same breath. Outside, the wind screamed across the ice. 20 years was a long time. Daniel was older now. Gray threaded through his hair. Lines marked his face. He had left Glacius 7 long ago, moved to other stations, studied other species. But he never stopped thinking about three baby dragons he had known for 1 week. He never stopped wondering if they remembered him. His work had changed after that week. He focused on endangered species, on conservation, on proving that nurture could overcome nature. He published papers about attachment behaviors and early development. Some people called his work brilliant. Others called it wishful thinking that he never told anyone the real reason behind his research. The message arrived on a Tuesday. A simple text communication from an unknown sender. "Dr. Reed, there are 3 individuals who wish to speak with you. They have traveled very far. Will you meet them?" Something in Daniel's chest tightened. He knew. Somehow, he knew that he typed back with shaking hands. "Where?" The coordinates came through. A neutral station in the outer rim. 3 days' travel from his current location. Daniel booked passage immediately. The journey felt endless. He tried not to hope. 20 years was too long. They would not remember. They had probably forgotten him within weeks. It was better that way. They had lived full lives without him. But his heart would not listen to his logic. The station was busy. Hundreds of species moving through, trading, traveling, living their lives. Daniel stood in the designated meeting area and waited. His hands would not stop shaking. Then he saw them point 3 frost drakes walk through the crowd. Full grown now. Blue scales were deep sapphire, shimmering with power. Ash had grown sleek and silver gray, moving with controlled grace. Copper gleamed like burnished metal, smaller than the others, but still magnificent. They were beautiful. They were terrifying. They were everything the stories said frost drakes could be. And they were walking straight toward him. Daniel's breath caught. They were so much larger than he remembered. Their eyes were still golden, but ancient now. Wise. They had lived full lives. Become adults. They would not know him. Could not possibly. Blue reach him first. The dragon stopped 3 feet away, studying him with those golden eyes. Analyzing. Remembering. Then Blue made a sound. A single note, clear and pure. The same note it had made 20 years ago. Goodbye turned into hello. Daniel's knees went weak. Blue closed the distance and gently pressed its massive head against Daniel's chest. The purr that rumbled through the dragon's body was deep enough to feel in his bones. The same purr, just bigger now. Ash approached more carefully, circling once before touching Daniel's hand with its snout. Cool scales. Familiar jeszcze. The cautious one was still cautious, but it remembered. Copper did not hesitate at all. The dragon wrapped around Daniel like it had when it was small, nearly knocking him over. It made the same crying sound, but happy now. So happy. You remember, Daniel whispered. Tears ran down his face. You remember me. Blue rumbled a sound that Daniel's translator picked up as words. Real words. We never forgot. You were our first. Our warmth. Our safety. We searched for you. Ash added, voice like wind through crystals. It took years, but we do not abandon those who saved us. Copper nuzzled against him, too emotional to speak yet. Daniel put his hands on their scales, feeling the strength in them now. They could destroy a ship with these bodies, could tear through metal, could do everything the Federation feared. But they chose gentleness. They chose to find him. They chose to remember. You have grown so much, he said. Because you gave us the chance to grow, Blue replied. The sanctuary taught us our history, our culture, the trading songs, the peaceful ways, all the things our species forgot during the war. There are others now, Ash said. 43 frost drakes in the sanctuary. We're teaching them what you taught us. That warmth is not just heat. That safety is not just survival. That love is the strongest protection. Copper finally found words. We are ambassadors now, showing the galaxy that we are not the monsters they fear. We have opened 3 trade routes, negotiated 2 peace treaties. We are what our ancestors were before the war. Pride swelled in Daniel's chest. You did all that yourselves. You wrapped us in your blanket when we were cold, Blue interrupted gently. You chose our lives over your safety. You gave us the first example of what goodness looks like. Everything we are started in that moment. Other beings were staring now, seeing 3 massive frost drakes with a human, gentle and peaceful, seeing something impossible. The Federation changed their laws last year, Ash said. Because of us. Frost drakes are no longer automatically classified as hostile. We have been offered colony rights on 2 worlds. We are rebuilding. The galaxy is learning, Copper added. Slowly. But they're learning that what you do to the helpless shapes what they become. Daniel looked at the 3 of them. His babies. All grown up now. Making a difference. Changing the future. I am so proud of you. Will you come with us? Blue asked. To see what we have built? The new colony has warm blankets and soft places to rest. We can finally return the warmth you gave us. Daniel laughed through his tears. Yes, I will come. Copper purred and nuzzled closer. Good. We saved the best spot for you. Right in the middle, where it is warmest. They walked through the station together. 3 dragons and 1 human. The crowd parted, watching in wonder. Someone whispered, is that the human who raised the frost drakes? The one from the stories. Another answered, yes. The one who chose compassion over fear. They say he changed an entire species with a single act of kindness. Daniel heard them and smiled. He had not changed a species. He had just wrapped 3 cold babies in a blanket and given them warmth when they needed it most. But sometimes that was enough to change everything. Blue, Ash, and Copper walked close to him, their presence warm and protective. A family reunited, a promise kept, a circle completed. Somewhere in the galaxy, other species watched and learned. If a human could see potential in the most feared creatures, could wrap the dangerous in gentle warmth, could choose love over law, then maybe they could too. And slowly, across 1,000 worlds, attitudes began to shift. Not because of speeches or treaties, but because 3 dragons had once been cold, and 1 human had smiled and wrapped them up gently in his blanket. That was all it took. One small act of kindness, rippling across the stars.